Your ass is grass. Do you understand? And if
I'm
you...
done with this shit.
So,
Tell me who
be
your
looking out for
parents
those
are.
cops.
Alright, I will.
Get out of our
I'll be
neighborhood.
looking
You're
out for
supposed to be
those cops.
sheltered in place. Go ahead. Put me on social media. You're a little punk. Seriously? And seriously, I called the cops. I can't... What
Wow,
happened?
I'm so scared. I'm so scared.
Meanwhile, face coverings while out in public are now mandatory in Riverside County, and residents who don't comply could face...
By the way, I'm hearing that people are getting cited for driving in their vehicles by themselves, inside of their vehicles, by themselves, for not wearing a mask. They're just perpetuating this Bravo Sierra. Fear, fear. That's the only way they can control us is by fear. Wake up.
a hefty fine. CBS 2's Candace Crone reports from Riverside with more on the new order.
The county is really stepping up its efforts to slow the spread of the coronavirus by fining people who leave their home without wearing a mask. And the fine for violating the order is $1,000 per day per violation.
And I heard that applies inside your vehicle now as well. I'm looking more into it. It's getting crazy out here. Literally crazy out here.
Can you repeat what you just said, please?
Well, last Friday I received a 7-page document that sort of told me that if I had an 86-year-old patient that had pneumonia but was never tested for COVID-19, but sometime after she came down with pneumonia, we learned that she had been exposed to her son, who had no symptoms, but later on was identified with COVID-19, that it would be appropriate to diagnose on the death certificate COVID-19. Now, we've not done that. If someone has the pneumonia and it's in the middle of a flu epidemic, and I don't have a test on influenza, I don't diagnose influenza on the death certificate. I will say this elderly patient died of pneumonia.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but my heart is sinking right now as you're telling me this. You're a doctor. Why in the world would they be sending you out information to fill out death certificates, whether the person's been diagnosed with COVID-19 or not, but then to say in the death certificate this person's death was caused by COVID-19? That does not sound right to me.
I went to the person in our office who does most of the death certificates over the last 10, 20 years, and I said, does this sound right? I had her look at the documents that I printed off, and she said, well, we've always been told that you always put down just facts. You don't put down any probabilities. You don't put any presumptions down. It's just what you know. And so this is concerning, and it actually gets to your point, Chris. When we start talking about the data that goes into the modeling, we have to ask ourselves a question. Are we being forthright? Are we sharing with the public? Minnesota, North Dakota, we don't need to be having it sugar-coated. We want to know what's going into your modeling.
So with that being said, why would they want to skew the number of deaths due to COVID-19?
Well, fear is a great way to control people, and fear is a great way to control people, and fear is a great way to control people, and I worry about that. I worry that sometimes we're so darn interested in just jazzing up the fear factor.
answer to the current health and economic disaster is to effectively suspend capitalism. Stop pretending like we're still living in free market Wall Street rules America. We're not. And the best way to deal with this is to explicitly suspend those rules of capitalism and all the BS mythology that comes with it. Suspend all debt collection, foreclosures, evictions, credit report hits, all of it. The fairy tale about how we can pay it back if only we're good little boys and girls, that has been completely demolished. The healthcare system and other critical industries should be nationalized. We can't wait around hoping the free market will get its act together on gowns and masks and ventilators and other absolutely essential supplies. Hospitals are going to go bankrupt if the government doesn't effectively take them over. It's not even temporary socialism we need, but basically temporary communism. Citizens supported by the government. Major sections of the economy planned by the government. Because 30% unemployment isn't something you bootstrap and free market your way through. It's something that our nation can only survive without mass chaos and unrest by truly embracing collectivism from the bottom to the top.
You know, I have good news for you, Margaret, because there is a solution using available technology today to fix the economic part of this problem. The solution is universal testing. What you want is every single person to get tested every day, and then they would wear a badge like they would after they voted or something like that to show that they've been tested. This would immediately sort out who's been infected and who hasn't been affected. That would help the healthcare sector, but it would also help the economy because we could interact with each other with a lot of confidence.
Eventually, what we'll have to have is certificates of who's a recovered person, who's a vaccinated person, because you don't want people moving around the world where you'll have some countries that won't have it under control. Sadly, you want to completely block off the ability for those people to go there and come back and move around.
They have to get the shot. The vaccinations are so important. This is really going around now. They have to get their shot.
It's so important to get not just hundreds of millions, but literally billions of those vaccines, because this is a global problem. And although the U.S. has got the most cases right now, as time goes on, the developing countries where isolation is more difficult and the health system is very weak, sadly, they're most likely to experience the most pain of all as this goes global. Now, the world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%.
They have to get their shot.
There are some good things happening. The work on a vaccine, although that probably will take 18 months, that's going full speed ahead. Our foundation is funding that. We're looking at getting vaccines to everyone in the world. So in the long run, we're looking at getting vaccines to everyone in the world. So in the long run, we're looking at getting vaccines to everyone in the world.
We must reform our mental health laws to better identify mentally disturbed individuals who may commit acts of violence and make sure those people not only get treatment, but when necessary, involuntary confinement.
Last week, Dr. Michael Ryan, he's a leader at the World Health Organization, announced that in response to the spread of this virus, authorities may have to enter people's homes and remove family members, presumably by force.
In most parts of the world, due to lockdown, most of the transmission that's actually happening in many countries now is happening in the household, at family level. In some senses, transmission has been taken off the streets and pushed back into family units.
I guess those that Dump was talking about, with the fact that we might actually revolt against these people. Don't come into my house. Don't try to take my family. Worry about it a lot.